Hey, Into Picklers. Been out last week, a little bit of a cold. You can still hear it in my voice a little bit, so but feeling better today. Wanted to get out here and get you some videos going today. Pickleball instructions got to continue regardless of circumstances. So what I want to talk about today is basically point of contact forward. So backswing is point of contact with the ball is here. Backswing is this part of the stroke, and we've covered that in the other videos. I'm going to link to those. What I want to talk about today is point of contact forward. In other words, from here, finishing the stroke is what I want to talk about today. And you'll see how improving this part of your game or making this part of your game more consistent will help reduce errors and improve your game. So let's get into it. What I want to focus on today are three aspects of the follow-through, two of which can introduce errors into your shot, and the third one, which having an understanding of, will help you become more consistent with your shot. So first two I want to talk about are error-inducing types of problems with follow-throughs. So let's go ahead and talk about those. In order to keep errors down with your shots, you want to try and use major muscle groups and major joints. What this means primarily when you're hitting balls is using your shoulder more than your elbow or your wrist. So specifically, like if I'm hitting a third shot, what I'd be doing is I would be lifting from the shoulder, pendulum style. Whether I'm doing it from the side or from the bottom, I'm going to be using my shoulder primarily to execute the shot. What introduces the possibility for errors is when I start introducing the smaller joints like the wrist and the elbow. Those are more prone for error, and we'll talk about those in a second. Some players try and use the wrist to impart like extra spin into their shots or extra oomph into their shots. That can introduce errors into your game. I'm not saying never to use a wrist, just have an understanding that when you introduce the wrist into your shot, you're going to potentially introduce additional errors into your game. So if I'm hitting a third shot like this, let's say, or a dink, let's say I'm just hitting a dink like this. So I'm hitting a nice consistent dink. There's really no chance for error from the wrist or the elbow. It's just a nice simple stroke. Now if I introduce the wrist into the shot and I start doing like this, that can create errors. Why? Because it's not as consistent. So now one time it'll be like this, the next time I might be like that, the next time I might be like that. The wrist by definition has more flexibility or more mobility than the shoulder does, even than the elbow does. So the wrist introduces the highest level of potential error into the game by introducing the wrist. Again, not suggesting you never use the wrist, just understand that if you're making errors in the game, so let's say you're doing like this and you're popping balls up, it could be that your wrist is flicking that ball up into the strike zone or into the other team's slam zone. So maybe think about taking that wrist out of that shot in the next couple of times and see what happens. The other joint that can introduce errors into your game in the follow-through is your elbow. What you see that more often than not is on the forehand side, because the backhand side, the elbow's already kind of extended there. But on the forehand side, what you see happen, you see people keep their elbow close to their body, and then they start using the elbow like this and hitting up on it. That'll result in pop-ups and in mistiming because you're introducing the elbow into the shot. It also introduces another way of flexing the paddle in a way you don't want, whereas the shoulder is just a nicer, consistent shot by using the shoulder, taking the elbow and the wrist out of the game. All right, so let me show you a little bit about how the wrist can introduce errors into the game right now. What I'm gonna do is show you a few different spins I'll try and hit with the wrist, and you'll see how the shot will break down after a couple of shots. Eventually, after a couple of shots, what'll happen is I'll just mistime it, and I'll either clip it or I'll just mistime the cut, and it'll just introduce an error. Now, if I do it without the wrist, or if I just hit it flat like this, then chances of missing are much reduced. So just hitting like this, I'm not gonna miss. Just using the shoulder, hitting nice, simple dinks from here, I'm not gonna miss those shots. Now I introduce the wrist, and now, okay, I hit that one's fine, and that one was short. Why? Because I overcut it. I just overcut it because the wrist is really hard to control. Let me show you a little bit of how the elbow works. So that has no elbow, and now I'm gonna introduce the elbow. What happens is I start raising the ball up, because when I break the elbow, right, the plane of the paddle is too high by using the elbow. So try not to use the elbow, just use the shoulder, keep the paddle at the nice 45-degree angle, and just drop it in the kitchen nice and smooth like that, without the elbow. The wrist can be introduced sometimes in the shots like the overhead and things like that because you want to have a little more snap on the shot. Sometimes, for instance, I hit a forehand where I'll come across with a little bit of snap on the wrist on it, but that's because I've been hitting forehands for 40 years of my life. So hitting a forehand with a little bit of wrist comes natural to me, but it does introduce the possibility of error into my shot. It's just something I need to understand. The elbow, on the other hand, really is a joint that probably shouldn't be used much in most shots other than the normal flexion of the elbow. It should not be used to actually drive the ball with the elbow. So wrist a little bit, fine. Elbow probably doesn't add much to your shot. Shoulder is really what you want to focus on your follow through to reduce errors in your game. The other part of the follow through I want to talk about is finishing the follow throughs. Sometimes what you see players do is they'll take a little bit of a backswing like this, and then they'll stop their swing as soon as they hit the ball like this. That's not how you want to hit the ball. Rather than taking the paddle back and then stopping the paddle here, consider bringing the paddle up towards the ball more and then finishing the shot. In other words, finishing your follow through the ball to where you want it to go. So for instance, if I want to go to the left, I'll just finish to the left. If I want to go to the right, I'll finish to the right. If I'm sending it from the baseline on a third shot or a long dink, then I'll send it longer. If I'm doing a short dink at the kitchen, then I'm going to send it shorter. So consider the follow through as part of your shot, and it'll improve your game. All right, so now we're going to look at how the follow through, how I can use the follow through to guide the ball or aim the ball where I want it to go. So let's see how that looks. I follow through to the right, it goes to the right. I follow through to the left, it goes to the left. I follow through up, it goes into a lob. That's all follow through driven. I follow through shorter, I drop it into the kitchen. If you watch my stroke, I'm not changing my stroke at all. All I'm doing is changing the follow through of the stroke. So it's the same stroke, that one to the right, then I'm going to go to the left, but it's the same stroke. Then I'm going to go up with it if I want to lob it. So I can basically hit anything I want to hit, middle. So wherever I want to send the ball, I just send my follow through in that direction. So use the follow through to help control your shots. Give it a try. Think of the follow through as part of your game. It'll not only improve the type of shot you hit, but understanding the follow through will help you reduce errors in your game because you start using the follow through to better aim your balls or better guide your balls to where you want them to go. Avoiding the net, for instance, reduces errors. Avoiding the out of bounds reduces errors, and you'll be able to do that by having a nice follow through. Try it out. I want to thank our friend Tommy for helping us make this video possible today. So if you're ever out playing with Tommy, give him thanks. Thank you for watching. If the video has been helpful to you, consider subscribing below. By subscribing, not only do you get notified of additional content we put out there, but others in the pickleball community will be notified of our videos. That basically, by having more subscribers, the YouTube channel focuses on those videos because they're deemed to be helpful to the community, and it funnels those to the different players. So again, if you found this information helpful, please consider subscribing below, and thanks for watching. You want to shorten your back. Hey Jelly, that's my outtake now.